Good night. Sweet dreams. That's what my dad would say to me. But sometimes I had trouble falling asleep. Then he would tell me stories about his travels. I want this tradition to live on. So now, let me share my stories with you. I add a dab of white to the deep crimson on my tray and mix the viscous acrylic paint with a palette knife. Light streaks run beneath the red, and for a moment I'm reminded of the candy canes I used to love as a child. I continue to work the creamy mass until a soft pink emerges. Now just a tiny brush tip of cobalt blue, and then, hopefully, I'll have matched the color of the lush climbing rose that winds its way along the porch of the small stone cottage. It's not easy to capture all of this beauty with a brush, the secluded corners of the enchanted garden, the overgrown stone walls, the magnificent rhododendron bushes, the fragrant herb bed, the purple lavender, and the winding roses. And then, of course, there's the cottage itself. A quaint little house with gray slate walls, white lattice windows, and a thatched roof that blends into its surroundings. It's classic Cornwall. This English county has a very particular atmosphere. Rugged cliffs, a salty breeze, and the roaring Atlantic Ocean. But the warm winds, carried in on the Gulf Stream, bring unusually sunny and mild weather. The dreamy blooming gardens are abundant with plants, diverse and unique to this region. Overall, it's a perfect spot to find a bit of peace and quiet. In recent months, I've felt a strong need to seclude myself away in nature, to take a short break from my busy life and have some time to gather myself again. And what better way to do that than to find a charming little cottage and paint? I scatter small pink dots up the side of my canvas, imitating the ascent of the rose blossoms. With a fine brush, I add tiny pale yellow highlights. I wish I could also capture their heavy musky scent that wafts across the garden in sweet clouds. One last brush stroke, then I head inside to wash my tools and give the canvas some time to dry. Rubbing the bristles into my palm in circular motions feels like a wonderful massage after the long painting session. As I set the clean brushes aside, a twinge in my back reminds me to roll out my neck and stretch my shoulders. I return outside with my breakfast, making myself comfortable on a wooden bench in the corner of the garden. It's tucked away under an apple tree and comes with a little matching table. It feels so wonderfully idyllic that I've taken almost every one of my meals here. Only the rain has been able to shoo me back inside so far. I briefly glance up at the sky to make sure I'm not about to be caught in another sudden storm, but aside from a few ominous clouds in the distance, the sky is clear and bright. Excellent. I pour myself a cup of steaming Earl Grey and stir in a dash of milk. The white streaks swirl into the dark brown before they incorporate completely, reminding me very much of my palette of paints. I smile, idly thinking about the upcoming stages of my painting as I slice open a still warm scone and slather it with strawberry jam and clotted cream. Part of why I like this shut-away section of the garden so much is because I feel totally hidden away and can peacefully enjoy my afternoon tea in the morning. The warm rays of the sun peek past the leaves at me as if they are jealous of my delicious breakfast. I dig in happily, daydreaming about flowers and clouds and paints. It isn't until early afternoon that those ominous clouds finally reach land. I had watched them roll in slowly, knowing I was likely to get caught in their precipitation, but not caring enough to speed up my leisurely stroll along the coast. On the contrary, as the light rain sprinkles down around me, I'm quite pleased with the coolness it brings. I walk along a trodden path by the rugged cliffs, enjoying the sea breeze on my face and the wild beauty of the landscape. These massive rock walls tower far above the foaming sea. No trees disturb the smooth expanse, only grass and mosses, and here and there a few pink or yellow tufts of flowering heather. I carefully venture to the outer edge of a rocky outcrop. Deep below me, the waves break around the dramatic pointed rock formations. The bright turquoise water, marbled with white wave crests, roars wildly around the shiny, almost black rock. From up here, the turbulent sea seems like a living creature, throwing itself against the land in an endless battle. I watch it toil for quite some time, while the rain gently taps against my bare arms. A small flock of seagulls pulls my attention from the waves' fruitless combat, and I let my gaze follow them down the coast. From here, I can see the place called Land's End, the westernmost tip of the English mainland, and it truly does feel like the land ends here. Looking out into the wild sea and the dark clouds, it's easy to imagine that there's nothing beyond this point. I half expect the thought to feel bleak, but instead it feels hopeful, as if I can physically remove the worries and stresses from my mind and toss them off the edge of the earth, where they are consumed by the churning spray below. I imagine them as deep reds and blacks mixing into the bright blue of the water. I breathe out a cloud of heaviness I hadn't even realized was weighing me down, and breathe in the clear, fresh air. The ocean rushes in my ears, and the rain drips approvingly on the gray stone. A ray of sunshine breaks through the clouds, shining off of the tops of the waves like fairy lights. And I feel like the world is telling me that everything is going to be okay. As I continue walking up the coast, I keep looking out at the water. I try committing the highlights and shadows of the waves to memory, but every time the sporadic sunlight changes, they shift into entirely new formations. Eventually, I have to sigh and give up. I make a plan to come out with my canvas and an umbrella next time it rains like this and hope to catch these wondrous speckles of light then. At one point, I see the outline of a mysterious building among the grass-covered rocks, softened by the hazy veil of rain and spray. As I get closer, the run-down, roofless building becomes clearer. So does the chimney next to it, a narrow cylinder of bricks that switches to a bronze-colored metal closer to the top. I recognize it as an old and clearly abandoned mine. Judging by its current state, it may even be one of the original buildings from the 1600s. One of many copper and tin mines in this region that fell out of favor sharply around the 19th century. Their narrow tunnels are said to extend well below sea level. I shudder at the thought. But the dilapidated ruins themselves are very charming. I examine their composition as I walk past, internalizing the washed-out grays and browns of the bricks, the reddish-brown of the path and the chimney top, the yellowish rocks scattered among the green grass, and the blue and gray backdrop of the sea and sky. The sun illuminates one side of the building in just the right way. Another spot I'll have to bring my canvas out for. My path takes me to a nearby coastal village, nestled around a picturesque bay. Red and blue sailboats bob in the water off a crescent-shaped beach, the ropes on their masts clinking softly in the wind. Small whitewashed houses climb up the hills, their enchanted gardens filled with vibrant flowers, lush bushes, and even palm trees. The flora feels almost Caribbean to me, but one glance at the thatched roofs of the cottages brings me right back to reality. I stroll around the dreamy fishing village, deciding to find a bite to eat. I've worked up quite the appetite with my exercise, and after the chill of the coastal wind and rain, I could really go for a hearty meal to warm me back up. Close to the harbor, I find a cozy-looking pub that calls to me. Its thatched roof is covered with an irregular layer of dark green moss, and its white stone walls are broken up by sky-blue window shutters. As I walk in, I'm happy to see that the outside's rustic charm is matched indoors as well. The wood-paneled room has a low ceiling with dark, half-timbered beams reaching across it. There's only a bar and a few tables, which adds to its warm, homey atmosphere. I sit down on an old oak bench in a corner and order a portion of fish and chips and a pint of beer. Then I lean back into the black and white checkered cushion and take in my surroundings. The dark woods of the building cradle the lighter woods of the furniture. The polished taps behind the bar gleam in the dim light. A dark red and yellow carpet leads to the back of the room. There's an unlit fireplace in the far corner with two squishy-looking armchairs in front of it. A light chatter floats around the space, so intertwined with the air that I can't pick out any words in particular. I imagine this pub to be as old as that mine I passed, and wonder what it may have looked like back then. There was a lot of piracy around Cornwall back in the day, The coast here, with its secluded bays and many caves, was a true paradise for smugglers, buccaneers, and beachcombers. Since pubs were a popular meeting place, many of them had secret tunnels to hide contraband. I wonder if this one does too. As I devour the crispy fried fish and chips, I think about the colors of golden treasures hidden deep inside dark tunnels and caves. Fortified by my meal, I explore the rest of the village. I'm pleasantly surprised when I pass by a small stone cottage, completely overrun with ivy, and see a sign indicating it to be Joanna's Art Supplies. I open the door to the sound of a little bell, and am immediately greeted with a distinct smell of acrylic paints. 2 entire walls are lined from floor to ceiling with shelves and packed with paints of all colors of the rainbow. I admire the closest shelf and debate which of my many sources of inspiration to paint next. A young woman, who must be Joanna, comes out of an adjoining room. She's wearing a paint-splattered apron and a smile, and asks me in a pleasant voice if I'm looking for anything specific. I admit my conundrum to her and she chuckles. She can relate to my struggle, she says, but any time she doesn't know what to paint next, she always defaults to the sea. It has so many aspects after all, so many possible shades and hues. I tried to describe the way it lit up on my walk earlier, and for a while we just stand on either side of the little shop's counter and talk about the brushstrokes of the ocean. At one point, we migrate to the shelves of blue paints to continue our discussion. Cobalt, turquoise, cerulean, ultramarine. The rows are endless, and each one seems to capture a different side of the same water. In the end, Joanna picks out a tube of Prussian blue and a light cerulean for me, saying they should work well with the colors I'd mentioned already having in my collection. Clearly, we both know what I've decided to paint next. That evening, when the sun is low enough to reach under the branches of the apple tree, I pack up my supplies and head down the steep hill to my favorite spot on the beach. It's a little half-moon-shaped bay, covered in sand and smooth pebbles, and surrounded by sheer cliffs. It looks straight out to the west, directly into the slowly setting sun. I set up my easel in the soft sand, take a deep breath of the salty air, and begin blocking in shapes. I had planned to paint the sun setting over the water, but spontaneously decide to zoom out, adding in dark gray cliffs to frame the sides, the beach in the front, and my easel right in the center. The ocean fans out from the sides of the easel like wings, with a blinding yellow sun as its crown. As I paint, the sun falls lower and lower, changing the bluish grays of the sky into pinks and oranges, and adding a bright rose gold sheen to the tops of the waves. I adjust my palette to match, simply painting over my vibrant blue layers. The sun shifts on my canvas, its past selves becoming faded as I paint over them. I become so absorbed in capturing the evolution of nature's colors that I hardly notice the day ending around me. Only once the sun slips all the way past the golden line of the horizon do I step back from my canvas. In the diffuse light left before the arrival of dusk, I examine my creation with wonder. The path of the sun travels down the center of the painting in a vertical line, like a time-lapse of its motion, until it becomes a corona around the edges of the white canvas. The sea and sky have blended into each other in a myriad of colors, ranging from blue to purple to red and orange and yellow. On either side of the painting, rough gray borders rise out of the sand and water, streaked with undiluted shades of the sunset. A strange texture seems to cover the entire canvas, as if the ocean breeze warped the paints while they were drying. It feels like the sea itself took hold of my brush and created this painting together with me. I suddenly feel exhausted, but as I pack up my supplies and climb back up to my cottage, I'm filled with satisfaction. I carefully set the painting against the wall of my bedroom and settle into the sheets. My head sinks into the fluffy pillows, and I close my eyes. Images swirl inside my head, like paints mixing together. Dark tunnels, hidden behind wooden beams and filled with gold, leading out into old ruins. I float on the ocean wind, across the grass-covered rocks and down the tall cliffs. A blank canvas stands on the beach, and my dreams begin to paint their pictures.